Well, good morning, and thank you for joining the World Council of Credit Unions webinar. My name is Liz Stanislawski, and I'm the Director of Communications for WOCU. Today's session will focus on practical strategies to strengthen member engagement and build long-term loyalty. We'll explore what it takes to create meaningful, people-centered member experiences, from building genuine rapport and empathy to approaching challenges with more inclusive and collaborative problem solving. As member expectations continue to evolve, these approaches are becoming increasingly important for credit unions, looking to deepen relationships and deliver real value. Now, before we begin, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You can access it by clicking the More button with the ellipses. We'll get to as many questions as time allows at the end. This session is being recorded and will be available on WOCU's YouTube channel later this week. I also want to note that this webinar is being translated from English to Spanish, so we're very glad to have participants joining us from both languages today. If you haven't already, please select your preferred language also at the bottom of the screen. Now I am pleased to introduce our speakers. We have Jennifer Esperanza, Vice President of Organizational Strategy at Coopera, Ana Montoya, Vice President of Marketing at Rock Valley Credit Union, and Chelsia Neto, CDFI Coordinator at Connections Credit Union. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you, everyone from around the world and across the United States for logging in today. We're really excited to speak on the topic of the innovation shift, creating experiences that inspire loyalty. It's my pleasure to have my esteemed colleagues here, Ana and Chelsia. As you can see, we are coming at you from various parts of the United States. But I also want to note that each of us also have international backgrounds ourselves. Ana from Mexico, Chelsia from Angola, and myself from the Philippines. All of us have global experiences that enhance the operations, the work that we do, and the insights that we have in working in the credit union industry. And so with that, I want to first start with setting the stage and being able to talk about specifically why we were interested in speaking on this topic of building member loyalty. We all know the realities of financial services these days, right? We now have the current challenges of sophisticated artificial intelligence enabled fraud. There's a lot of competition in the fintech marketplace. We've got a lot of consolidation happening with credit unions across the country. We're seeing a lot of mergers happening, as well as folks having limited resources and staff to be able to really fulfill all the duties that they set out to do. So a lot of bandwidth is being stretched thin. But we want to use this as an opportunity to not dwell so much in those challenges solely, but thinking about those as opportunities, right? We've got new and emerging market segments. We've got members like ourselves, as I had just mentioned, and employees who are globally connected, who have international backgrounds and can speak multiple languages. There's a lot more organizations and nonprofits out there that we can partner with for stronger community-based advocacy. And these are opportunities for really innovating for existing products and services. So in other words, this next hour, I want us to reframe how we think about innovation. When we think the word innovation, it oftentimes comes hand in hand with technology, streamlined apps, new processes, new technologies that enhance what we think can happen at our credit unions. I'd like us to shift the idea of innovation to think about innovative ways of connecting with people, right? To stay true to our identities of people helping people, shifting our thinking about innovative ways of enhancing and creating new types of social connections. And what better way than to connect with our colleagues here, Anna and Chelsia, because I thought, in my understanding of the work that they do as a marketing VP, as a CDFI coordinator, they have really been able to be innovative in how they bring in newer, younger, more diverse members and also keep them engaged and loyal. So, with that, I'd like to just transition by starting off with the topic of just member growth opportunities. And let me just continue here by talking about what this means, right? The three of us wanted to underscore this next hour as an opportunity to keep an eye on emerging challenges and ways that we can be innovative. And what better way than for myself? I work for Coopera Consulting and we specialize in data, right? We collect demographic data across the United States on various communities in different ways. And so, what I do is not necessarily work at a credit union, but I work for credit unions. I provide data analytics to help communities understand what are the changes that are going on. What does their population look like? What will it look like 5 years down the road? There's a lot of data that is available out there, both as a paid service, calling upon consulting services like ourselves, but also lots of free data. Taking a look at the census, taking a look at the data that is being produced by local nonprofits as well as national nonprofits based on their interests. There are a lot of different reports that are out there, in particular in the United States. The United Way produces an annual ALICE report, reports on populations who find themselves asset limited, right? Income constrained, but also employed. So just, above the poverty level, but only slightly, still struggling. These are really important pieces of data to utilize so that you can take a look at things like, what are the household income levels looking like? What are the new market segments? What can you do about not just the Latino community or the Nigerian community or the, Spanish speaking community as a larger umbrella, but really being able to segment them into more specific demographics. And so let me turn it over to Anna, where she can talk about how they utilize data and going from there in their strategy. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm providing a perspective from a marketing lens. But going back to Jen's remarks, this is all about really people, right? Understanding who you're going after and going after and looking at your data. You need data in order to define your target market. Long gone are the days of being all to all, and your team really needs to define who you want to attract and who is going to help with your growth goals. At our VCU, we understood the value of attracting and growing our Hispanic market membership. We already had a branch that was booming with Hispanic members, and our goal was to grow that market in our other branches. Sure, we utilized a few tools and our people to understand what our current membership makeup was. One of those tools was our partners at Coopera, as Jen had mentioned. Working with the team, we were able to take a closer look at our data. Our leadership team absorbed the information, and our marketing team and our board went to work to develop a strategy and set goals. I should note that this is usually the time when most leadership teams panic sets in, right? Immediately the mindset is we have to change all of our materials. Do we have to rebrand? Are we losing our brand identity? All these scary changes, and that's completely, that's okay to have those thoughts. But you really have to stop thinking about a certain market or a certain segment of your population and think among those in that market as whose is your ideal member. Something that our Hispanic team members echoed was that this market is a particular market that is earned with trust, and word of mouth is huge. But once you got them, they are loyal to you to the end. So with that in mind, rather than set a percentage growth goal for the year, our team decided to focus on trust. So we decided to build key relationships, making connections, understanding the challenges that this community was facing. And we were in it for the long game. Um, this spring, we recently went back to our friends at Coopera to see how our strategy measured in terms of growth. And we were really pleased to see an 11% growth in our Hispanic market membership. So again, just reemphasizing these bullet points here. Look at your membership. Who's already a member and why? How did they get there? Identify those pain points. What do they struggle with? And if you don't know, I'm willing to bet that your MX team, those frontline members that they interact with, do know. Segment your market again. Look at their demographics. Where are they living? Where are they congregating? What's a happy place in your community for them? And what are the behaviors? What are your competitors doing and who are they missing? What are they missing out on? And then choosing your focus and creating who you want to attract. And it's all about testing and adjusting. There's not a one size fits all for your strategy for sure. That's something that we do is we revisit and revise.
Thanks, Anna. I love that because, a lot of credit unions that are on this call are probably doing this already. And yet, sometimes what we forget to do is revise, right? And so we think, wow, it's not following up with how we want it to be. And I think it's really important to remember that this is an ongoing process. Chelsia, explain this graphic because Anna's coming from the marketing side and you're coming from community development. And there's a lot of overlap, but tell us about your approach here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. It is a pleasure to be here and talking a little bit about how we are covering about the data, right? You have that data, and after you have that data, it's really important that you really start to think about how can you really elevate that member experience. And for me, as a CDFI coordinator working here in Idaho, really coming with that global perspective, being from Angola, but still working here and speaking three languages, it really put me in a very good advantage when it comes to really elevate that member experience, especially working with different communities across the world. And when you actually focus on that, it's actually going to put you in a very competitive advantage because truly understanding how each touch point works together, it can help you work with your team to really understand the 4 stages that your members can go in to really earn that trust or that loyalty, or even if you can lose it. So just kind of looking through this 4 stage framework, we have here the first impression. And the first impression is pretty much when you are in that discovery stage on members finding out information about your credit union. And are they feeling confusion? Are they feeling hope? Are they feeling excited? And this is really the point that member, usually they're asking the question of, is this credit union a place for me? Is this credit union a place for people like me? And then the second stage is pretty much the account opening. So when they actually interact with your credit union, do you have any brand elements in your branch that brings that member experience that makes them feel like they belong? Or when they're opening their account, is the process super long or super easy? So they're really here to really have that touch point with your brand to see how they feel. And then after that, they really move to the online interaction, where is every digital touch point that you have with your membership, which is your email, your website, your notifications. And are these notifications and messages being translated in their language? Does it feel human? Especially now with AI, a lot of the content is very, AI generated. Are you still being authentic when it comes to that communication with your membership? And the last point is pretty much that ongoing relationship. And this is where most of us really stop investing. And this is the stage that we really, really have to work as credit unions to truly understand of how can we keep that relationship going and how can we really keep that relationship deeper with our members. And this brings us to that global member experience, right? I think all of us, we work with different members and communities that are global. today. And data can tell us who they are and where are they, but the global member experience can still be a very big opportunity for all of us to truly learn and see what is happening across the globe. So from Latin America to Africa to Southeast Asia, or even here in the United States, a lot of the members are still feeling the same thing when it comes to that member experience. We can see that in Latin America, some people, they're still struggling to even have bank accounts or being able to save. And even in Africa, mobile solutions are still a significant struggle when it comes to improve member experience. And when I look at all of these experiences across the globe, I can truly see common challenges that even credit unions are facing here in United States. For example, with my work in Idaho, I have the opportunity to go to rural areas where they don't have mobile app, they don't have a credit union, they don't have a bank. How are these institutions being able to leverage that member experience, right? And then also something that I see is the struggle of lending more, right? Idaho is actually the 50th state in the nation that struggles with access to financial capital. However, we are the fourth state in the nation that actually has more business growth. So we kind of see that a lot of us are still really struggling, or we are facing the same challenges when it comes to truly improve that member experience. And as we continue to work together and really look at this global perspective, it's really going to help us to foster that loyalty, build meaningful relationships, and create innovative solutions to really address the unique needs of the different communities we serve.
Thank you for bringing attention to that global perspective, Chelsia. I think what I really appreciate about these conversations that we have at World Council is the fact that it's not that our learning about credit union experiences and innovative processes happens in one direction, right? There's a lot of ways in which American credit unions, North American credit unions can learn from what's happening in other parts of the globe. And so, we are in a good diverse country, especially United States, but also countries like Canada, where we have large immigrant populations. Really leverage the insights that folks have coming from these different backgrounds in these countries. I know that in the consulting world myself, there's a lot of innovative solutions that I bring to American credit unions, having lived and conducted research with cooperatives in both the Philippines and also in Indonesia. So I also see that we have some Indonesian folks here on the call. Happy to see you. Salamat datang. And really, a lot of advice that I give to American credit unions is what I learned from what you all had done in Indonesia. So this is a good segue into building loyalty. Let's see some examples of how credit unions like Rock Valley, like Connections, build loyalty and inclusivity with some of their practices. So take it away, Anna, where you can talk about what we mean here by building trust.
Yeah, thanks, John. So going back to that, as somebody who was born and raised in a good part of my childhood in Mexico, I truly felt like an insider when we went to work on this project of building our Hispanic membership. I felt like an insider because I happened to fit the profile of our target market. But beyond what I knew, right, I also talked to our team, our own staff members, to tell us all the tea of what was happening in our communities. What's big in this community? Tell me where are places of joy. And we all landed on one thing, and that was soccer. It's literally a part of the lives of all of our Hispanic communities, regardless of what country they are from. We love our football. And sure, there are several reasons why the sport is so popular, but it's also one of the less costly and most easily accessible sports in the world. However, we know that communities of color still experience financial disparities that impact opportunities to their kids. So we met with that in mind, we sought out a team made up of all Hispanic children. We met with the coaches and we explained our goal was simple. We'd love to fund your uniforms and we'd love to fund your registration costs. All we asked for in return was to tell their story and why these kids were so awesome. We are now on our third season of that sponsorship, and we've enjoyed getting to know these future superstars. Moreover, and this is coming from a perspective of my own childhood, is that they will never forget the credit union that helped take one small part of that financial burden away. growing up, I remember when it was really, really hard for my own parents to fund my volleyball shoes or volleyball camp. And so to be able to go back and say I had these opportunities was so huge. Many of us also understood the challenges that come with being first generation immigrants and second generation immigrants. So first generation, just as a definition, first generations are those who are born in foreign countries and come to the US, usually as children. And most of the Hispanic market were brought at a young age. Second generation immigrants are those who are born here, but our parents, their parents are immigrants. One of the biggest challenges, and trust me, there are many, having lived it firsthand, but it's the opportunity to have those doors open for credit. So if you're brand new to a country and have zero resources, how will you ever be able to get a car loan to be able to get from one side of, the city to your work to home for your kids' schools, all of those, complexities? How will you ever be able to own a home and be able to provide, a stable place for your family to live? Again, first lived experience is here. I wanted to say I counted about 6 homes that I lived in throughout my childhood, just because although my mom worked 2 jobs, it was really hard to find a lender who would say yes and take that risk. So we saw that our Hispanic and Gen Z millennials here locally were experiencing this issue when it came to starting their businesses. For this, we partnered with our trusted organization community, whose entire mission was to help Hispanic small businesses thrive. We listened to what they wanted to learn about. What were those things that they needed more information about? And we tailored those workshops to gear them towards education and empowering them. In addition, we awarded 3 $1,000 awards and filmed their stories. But more importantly, they will have those tools that they can use for a lifetime. In terms of our marketing, it remained consistent, just with a little bit of a Latino flair or spice to it. So our creative skewed to what would connect with our Hispanic market. Our ads looked like the people we wanted to walk through our doors. Our videos also reflected how Hispanic family conversations happen at home. And you may or may not see a little bit of like our home life in this too. So Jen has a video that I'd love to share with you all as an example of what that creative looked like.
All right, let me toggle over to the video, which you can find on YouTube, and it comes in both the Spanish and an English version. But in many ways, Anna, this video, which I'll share here, actually is pretty much also Spanglish, which reflects, the fact that we've got, this second and first generation Latinos in your field of membership. So let me go ahead and play this video. About 30 seconds here.
Hola, mija. Hey, Ma, the recipe calls for repollo. What's root chicken? ¿Qué pasó, mija? Hola, Ma. Who's Ira Roth? Hey, Mama, Dad texted me, ponte las pilas, but what about the battery? Hola, Ma. Hola, Ma. Dios mío.
Mi hija necesita un poquito de ayuda.
Claro, por eso estamos aquí.
¿Puedo poner mi perro como dependiente?
Hablemos primero de tus ahorros.
Rock Valley Credit Union, here for wherever life takes you.
Okay. Hopefully you were able to see that. Was the video, the audio okay? All right. Let me toggle back to the slide deck here. But yeah, Anna, this was, you did this in 2 versions, right?
We did. We did it one version that was all English, and it skewed more of what most English speaking families talk about. This one had just a little bit of a slight variation of what typical Hispanic communities households talk about. I also wanted to touch a little bit in this slide about some other opportunities for membership growth and loyalty. So I don't have to tell anyone in this room that our membership age, the average age of our membership is aging. So we needed to get in front of those in front of children and their families the best way that we thought we could, which was through play. So we recently opened our first mini kids credit union, partnering with our local children's museum as a way to introduce children and families, young families, to the concept of a credit union. We know that that's continuing to be a challenge. And so this has been also a great avenue for us to promote our youth savings products. Lastly, just in touching on being responsive to the changes of your membership, and how you can, when a good example of how you can be proactive in doing this is Rock Valley Credit Union is based out of the Midwest. And although we experience blizzards and an occasional tornado, yesterday it almost happened here, we never experience hurricanes. However, going back to looking at your data, we knew we had a lot of our aging members migrating to the South and in particular Florida. So when a hurricane hits and you're trying to figure out all of life's things, how to rebuild your life, how powerful would it be to hear from your credit union during one of the hardest moments of your life? So we proactively and empathetically reached out to our members in Florida, letting them know that we were here for them. And if they needed to take a pause on their loan payments, that was okay.
Thanks, Anna. And what this does is it shows really that you're personalizing your approach, naming the problem that is felt specifically by the members in your community. We can always say our doors are open and you're welcome to come in and ask us what you need financially, but it's more meaningful and you build more loyalty if you actually name and identify the friction points that are felt by your members, that you are listening to what they are saying, what they need. And so with that, let me transition over to Chelsia because, yeah, you also do the same at Connections.
Yes, at Connections, we pretty much use the same approach. And just even looking at what Anna shared about productivity, it's still very important when it comes to really do this work and really working with diverse communities and global communities. Just a little bit about me. Before joining Connections, I really came from this international background where I was part of United World College, where I was living in the same place with more than 150 different nationalities all over the world, from Malawi to South Africa. I did have the opportunity to live in South Africa as well and Kingdom of Eswatini before coming to the US. But that experience really helped me to really have that proactive approach when it comes to truly serving and understanding the people that you're working with. And data, it's still a very important tool when it comes to really understanding what people are feeling, what do they like, how do they want to be support. And just kind of looking at Connections Credit Union, we had our Juntas Avanzamos designation last year, where it's pretty much a recognition for serving the Latino community as well as other immigrant communities. And our credit union really wanted to create something meaningful, not only to celebrate this accomplishment, but really show our support, right? Because I think as leaders in this field, it's very easy for us sometimes to really try to find solutions to try to serve our members, right? But we don't often pause to really ask how our members want to be served, right? And this comes with listening. And that's kind of what I highlight on the slide, 80% of listening. And that's really the way we can start building that loyalty. So for us, we actually ask our community, how do you want to be served? And some of them, they share that they would like something meaningful to take out from that celebration. So we're like, okay, let's design a sticker. And on that sticker, we actually implemented a lot of our brand elements from our logo of connecting Southern Idaho, right, which is the bridge. But if you can see the colors, there's a lot of the Hispanic culture colors. And the interesting thing about that is when we actually shared the sticker with Hispanic community members, they were super excited because they could resonate and they could actually see that personalization with that experience with the sticker, even though our credit union maybe couldn't relate a lot with the cultural elements there. But really asking that question to your members is going to allow you to really bring that uniqueness when it comes to bringing something for them and that is personalized for them as well. And this is how active listening also comes in. And empathy is not a soft skill, but I believe that it's a competitive advantage when it comes to a time that we are all living in, that a member can open an account in less than 8 minutes, right? And really keeping that relationship is going to be very important on how can we really hear the needs of our community. So here, I also have a little bit of my work with the English Language Center, which is a nonprofit organization that provides English classes to people coming all over the world. And in this class that we teach, we actually personalize it in a way that we are offering this class in 6 different languages for people, for them to be able to understand a lot of the things that we are sharing. And for us to be able to do that, we had to speak with translators, right? So we have those real translations happening, and people can resonate and people can engage with us. And even with this experience, we actually had a student that was coming from Mexico. He was very new to the country. He didn't have a driver's license. He didn't have a bank account. At the time, he even couldn't walk. And he was so amazed with being part of that class and so excited to be part of a credit union for the first time, being new in the US. And after that, he watched the class and he came to us and he said, "Can I open an account with you guys today?" And we said, like, unfortunately, we don't have the operations here, but we would try our best to bring it to you so you can open an account right here. But with some of the systems that we are still facing on bringing a member experience, we couldn't do that right away. However, that same community member came back after 12 months. After a year, that same member, he came into one of our branches and he decided to open an account with us after this same class when we first hosted. And he was super excited. And when he came in, I asked him, "Why did you come back?" And he said he came back because we built trust with him. And we were the first institution that really met him where he was. And when he didn't have anything, from a bank account to a driver's license to not even being able to drive, when he was able to reach these milestones in his journey, he wanted to have that relationship with us because we were the first ones to be there for him when he didn't have anything. So this is pretty much how a lot of this empathy and active listening can come in to really understand and really connect with your members at the very beginning.
This is a great example, Chelsia, of that responsiveness and the empathy that you may not recognize actually is building equity to the future. So you may have some touch points, if you volunteer, if you show up for community events that you may not think are meaningful because it doesn't automatically result in a person opening up an account with you right away. But that brand recognition, people remember the conversations and the deep questions that you ask them. So it's really important to train staff to ask those deep questions and to show empathy, show compassion for what they're going through. There's a lot of people on this call, not in the United States, but there are a lot of ways that you can replicate these kinds of things. What Chelsia was saying, meeting them where they're at, right? And so, Chelsia, you had brought up that you went to school at United World College, which is a boarding school. It's many boarding schools around the world. How many of these countries, right, have, ways to open up a credit union account for students who go to boarding school, right? Meeting those kids where they're at because it's maybe their first time away from home. And it would be a great, safe way for parents to be able to know that their children's finances are being taken care of with the credit union. How many credit unions around the world are identifying organizations that help out single mothers to meet them where they're at, right? Or to meet up with different kinds of pockets of the population, right? You have young people moving from rural areas to the big cities. How can you identify them? Look for boarding houses, the main employers where young kids from rural areas who may be very naive about finances really could benefit from your cooperative, from your credit union. I love how, let's transition over to, Chelsia, another continuation of meeting them where they're at with a mobile branch. Tell us about that.
Yes, Jen, thank you so much. And because kind of what Jen said, I think for a lot of us, we are working maybe for credit unions that don't have the resources, right? And sometimes it's just hard to really figure out, okay, there's just so many needs, which needs I should focus first. And at Connections Credit Union, we work with global partners. So we had the opportunity to collaborate with the Go West Association and to apply for a grant to really address some of the needs that we have in the rural communities we serve. So I think with that, I kind of want to highlight how it's important for you to really start with your area needs and try to localize your solutions. And as an example, 88% of Idaho is classified as rural. So when we actually had access to these data, Connections Credit Union, rather than just really trying to serve the underserved members by being a CDFI and creating multiple phase plans, we really try to focus on how can we localize solution by bringing the mobile branch directly to members, by bringing the mobile branch directly to some areas that don't have access to any financial services or products. So sometimes that response to local community needs is not going to be community relations or a big marketing campaign. It's really the daily practice of asking what is happening in the lives of our members right now and how can we show up for it.
Definitely. No, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of grants, there's some opportunities, right, to be innovative in that way, to meet them where they're at, and to extend into what, we want to talk about even further, collaborative problem solving. Collaboration begins with listening, as we just talked about, showing empathy, and knowing when to step back, because there are already experts in your community that can give you insights that are very helpful, that may cost you less money and resources because they've already got systems in place, or they've got insights that can help you better understand how to help your community. So with that, let me turn it over to Anna.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So when it comes to innovation, I think we often associate that with like the bright and shiny, what's going to get us immediate results. But it also is something, it goes back to people, right? And it doesn't just have to be you doing all the work. I know it can feel daunting when you don't have a large team. So use your partners. Look at those partners that you have in your community and how you can bring them in. So last year, Rock Valley Credit Union became the exclusive credit union of the Northern Illinois University Huskies. And leading up to that, we worked with the university's team to develop the framework of what our partnership would look like. We knew we wanted to be more than just a logo on their stadium or on their football field. That just wasn't who we were. We wanted to be in their classrooms, providing real world financial education. We wanted their students to talk about us among their peers and tell them about their experiences or how they helped them navigate through something that, they were challenged with. So because of that, we really leveraged all of the assets that were in our toolbox, and we established a brand ambassador program, and they did that for us. We also leveraged their mascot. It just so happens that our brand colors match the universities, and we both had dogs as our mascots, so it ended up working out just great. The brand ambassadors that we have, they talk on their socials about different things that they're experiencing, and their peers really rely on them for that trust and building that familiarity with our brand. Also, when you have these partners, when you support them, they will support you. And if you're doing a sponsorship, a donation of some sort, don't be afraid to ask for for that other ask in return, which is getting what you want out of that partnership. And then lastly, you all have superstars at your credit unions. You maybe just don't know it yet. Locally, we are home to one of the greatest basketball stars in recent times. I won't share the name, but I shifted my focus on, instead of chasing big influencer deals, to finding out who the town respected and admired. I happened to have attended a media day that a friend had invited me to a couple of years ago. And they were covering an up and coming boxing athlete. In full transparency, I was clueless about the world of boxing, and I ended up introducing myself at the end to the athlete, and he commented at the end of our conversation, "By the way, I love being a member of RVCU. I've been there since I was a kid." Immediately, like the light bulbs, everything started going off, and I knew I had to follow up with him. So a few days later, I reached out to him, and after some research, of course, because that's what we do in marketing, and I called Julian and I asked him if I could do a video testimonial on him, just highlighting his super successful career. And he agreed. He agreed in exchange, and all he wanted was a cheese board for that he wanted to give to his mom. So I said done. And that video ended up getting us a little over 120,000 views. But more importantly, it wasn't just locally. When we looked at the data, it was huge viewership in Puerto Rico, huge viewership in Mexico. And so that's just the impact that credit unions have in putting that people back into this, and collaboration means, looking at who are those superstars internally. I mentioned earlier about partnering with that local community entrepreneur organization. We did the same thing with them where we partnered with the organization to host workshops. And then at the end, we filmed some key entrepreneurs who have a pretty incredible business here, and we told their stories. And again, that was also another successful tactic that we did.
Yeah. No, this is very much what we're talking about when it comes to innovation. It's not new technologies, it's not expensive apps. It's really tapping into people, right? That's what we're supposed to do, right? In this industry. And so the innovation really happens around finding who are those local celebrities that can become what we call finfluencers, financial influencers. Young people love going online and sharing, tips and tricks. And this is also a demographic, however, that is not signing up for membership at credit unions. So what better way to encourage young people to join our movement than opening up a platform for them to become financial influencers, sharing with them the products and services that they may not have recognized could really be useful for their financial lives as young people, and to film them, or for them to film themselves and upload that content on behalf of your credit union. These are very inexpensive ways. These are ways that can reach a lot of folks, not just locally, but as Anna said, even internationally. And so this is what we call collaborative problem solving, is not and innovative, right? Not through those expensive apps, not through worrying about regulatory issues, but really just tapping into the people and the community members who are there. Take it away, Chelsia. You have also some stuff to contribute to this conversation.
Yes, and I just wanted to share that some of that collaborative problem solving really starts with your team, where you work, where you can make a difference right now. Even in this call right now, we have people coming from different positions in the credit union, from lending, operations, marketing, technology, community development. But I think the most important thing is really realizing how all of these different departments, right, or positions, they really represent a piece of the big puzzle, right? And the big puzzle is pretty much creating a better member experience and continue to serve better our members, right? And here, I also have this little framework where it kind of really highlights that you are there, right? Maybe the first stage on where you truly understand what communities are feeling, you really know what belonging looks like, and you have all of these different ideas, hearing ideas from this webinar or even conferences you have participated. So even let's say that, for example, you take this idea of putting a campaign, right, to reach out to the Latino entrepreneurs in your community. Maybe one thing to think about is really how would you bring everyone along in your team? How will you bring everyone along in your credit union? So even when looking at that, you might have to work with lending, right? Because they own the product design and they will be able to give you some insights of what that underwriting looks like on the member experience. And maybe also work with operation where they will help you also understand kind of like the workflow and the better way that you can create a better member experience when it comes to that delivery of services. And then marketing where they're really going to help you put the story, right, that you want to tell. But at the end of the day, you own the feeling. You are going to be that connection to make it work. And you're going to need an assertive communication and a shared strategy to answer a very simple question. How are you going to work together for the same goal? And how are you going to create a unique member experience?
Thank you. And I really invite all of you, use the chat, use the Q&A box to share, right? This is collaboration in action, right? We've shared ideas about mobile branches, meeting, farming, agricultural workers where they're at, sponsoring your local football, soccer teams, right, with uniforms, finding local celebrities to be financial influencers, or pairing up with connecting with the local university, right? What do you do? We would love for everyone to share some ideas maybe that have not been mentioned here before. Would love to hear about this. Yeah, Chelsia, continue a little bit more also about, global collaboration partnerships. And I also have some thoughts on this too.
Yes, for global collaboration, I think it's still a very great innovation tool, especially when it comes to connecting with leaders who might have different experiences than you. For example, in my experience, right, by being someone from Angola, I do speak Portuguese as my native language. I had to navigate so many challenges, right, by learning English or even now learning Spanish, right? But that opportunity really allowed me to not only connect with different groups, but also really understand a broader experience of what other people face in other countries. So in my experience, for example, with the English Language Center, we came along with some, limitations. And we remember when we were doing one of the presentations and we wanted people to fill up the form, right, to tell us their experiences. And through that experience, we actually learned that some of the students, they didn't know how to write and read. So when you are faced with that, how do you really think you can bring that member experience to some of those community members? And this kind of really made us think more on how can we still serve them, right? How can we make them feel like they belong? But for me, that experience was not shocking because coming from a global experience and even coming from my own country, I grew up not having my grandmother how to read and not knowing how to write, help her, or even sometimes translating different things to my parents so they could relate to the schoolwork that I'm doing because they don't speak English and they wouldn't understand when I tell them that I got an A or I open a bank account. So a lot of these experiences are very unique. And by working with diverse groups in your credit union, it can really help you to tap into different people's experience and really use that as an innovative tool to be able to address certain needs that come along, right? Like the experience with the English Language Center, and really find solutions to some of those needs. And with that, also going back to what Jen shared about the work that she does with Coopera, Connections Credit Union, we also work with different other organizations across the globe, like Inclusive, NELCUP, and of course Coopera, and so many others that have more insights or even tools on how to better serve some of these communities, or they can even connect you, right, with different people across the world. And it's the same thing with World Council on just meeting some people from Brazil, right, that speak Portuguese, and they might say, that's how you address this situation, and still bring that global perspective and partnership to really help us to continue to serve our members and communities better.
Yes, no, thank you. Shout out to Sicredi in Brazil. They are one of my favorites of credit unions. If you want any, ideas of how to attract young people, go to Sicredi. They do it right. And so those are things that I learned. Again, for those of you who have diverse communities, immigrants coming into your area, find out what are the cultural practices that are meaningful for them. Through Coopera, we've helped credit unions implement loan products. And this is basically just repackaging a personal loan, but very specifically, loans to fund a quinceañera, right? A 15th birthday party celebration for young Latina women who, this is a tradition culturally that they, spend lots of money on to be able to celebrate. But that can also be repackaged for, our members who may be Jewish and are trying to, come up with money so that they can celebrate their, bar mitzvahs for their kids. So share those success stories. Find ways, to utilize the credit union. You may not recognize that there are lots of ways you hadn't thought about. So, I also want to profile Peninsula Community Credit Union out in Washington State. They do a wonderful job of having a blog where they share success stories and what they do, and finding out, a member may come in with a specific problem, but Peninsula, after listening, showing empathy, and building that rapport, they find out that here's a solution that they hadn't thought about, or hey, we've uncovered a different type of problem that the member had not realized, right? Everything from, back taxes they didn't know that they owed, or, other problems with their account. So share what those success stories are. You can keep your members anonymous, their identities. Some people don't like to share, but really be able to partner with your community to share how your credit union is the ideal solution to local problems. Liz, I see you come back on board. I had some takeaways, but we could also just leave it open for, questions that may have come up. I'm not sure if there are any.
Well, I just wanted to mention a couple of things that were mentioned in the chat and see if
Okay.
perhaps you had thoughts, but you had asked people to share, what they do getting out in their communities. And we did have a comment from James who says that they have a large portable barbecue. So they take it to community events and partner with local organizations to provide fundraising for them by cooking food.
Oh, that is amazing, right? Who would have thought of that? James, thank you. Shout out to you and your credit union. Hey, even better if you can get your logo. I don't know if your logo is stenciled onto that barbecue, but brand recognition is really important. Who would have thought a barbecue? Well, I think even, showing up to soccer leagues and soccer competitions, Anna, I think RVCU has like tents. Aren't they present during soccer season?
We actually branded the goals at the local complex. So whenever, especially like right now that they had semifinals and finals, all of those action shots, we are back. It's bright red. You cannot miss us. So we are in every single picture, I think, of everybody's childhood that has played soccer here locally, which is awesome.
Yeah, and people will remember that, right? And so when those kids grow up and they look back on their soccer pictures, they come of age and they're trying to open up a bank account or a credit union, and they realize, oh, wait a minute, that red tent showed up quite a bit, right? And they make that connection. So remember, like loyalty, as I have here, it's not guaranteed, it's continuously earned. There are little actions that build up that you may not recognize, builds brand recognition, but also a consistency if you show up often enough that it will pay off in the end. And when you show yourselves as that trusted anchor, that primary financial institution that has been there, it's really important to be consistent about showing and sharing how you are that financial institution of choice. You are that cooperative of choice. So that means being proactive, helping members ahead of time, not being passive and waiting for disaster to happen. Look, we're upon, hurricane season will be coming up in a few months. We know that, flooding may be happening. What are the things that you are identifying that is very local to your area, right? Local to your community, but also posing yourselves as the ideal solution to that local problem. That way you can show that you are intuitive. You're going to be quick to respond. You can have some digital first experiences, but they may not necessarily be always there, but the people will be there. And that's really where we want to end this, right? Innovation is not, about just those technologies and those innovative technological or AI solutions. It's about people. It's about low cost, people to people kinds of connections that we make. So with that, thank you for logging in. I'm seeing lots of comments from folks and lots of ideas also. But yeah, happy to take any questions that you may still have.
We did
Chelsia,
have one.
oh yeah.
We did have one comment from someone else, more of a statement, but it's interesting because you just mentioned the people helping people principle. And
Mhm.
Cynthia Hope Brown feels like credit unions are getting away from the concept of people helping people, and that we need to get back to that principle despite the rigors of regulation. Any
Yeah.
comments or thoughts on that?
Chelsia, Anna?
Yes, I think I kind of resonate with that, and I think going back to even the insights we share in this presentation, I think as credit union leaders, I think when we think about just innovation and everything happening in our industry, it's just so easy to really think about those big frameworks or dashboards and big solutions and really distance ourselves from the statement of people helping people, right? And it starts with a lot of the things we share in today's presentation, from empathy, active listening, really being present, right? And I was sharing a lot about my experience by working with diverse groups, right? Really taking my experience by going to United World College. And even though I don't speak Spanish very well at the very beginning, now yo sé hablar español. Pero sometimes will be very intimidating, right? On just really taking that time of your day to have a different strategic approach, right? Because I think when we are thinking about strategy, we are always thinking, okay, where's the next software to improve this technology and make this experience better, even with AI tools coming in right now. But I think I often say that when it comes to my strategy, my days look very different. And my strategy is actually on the question of what is happening in my community today that I can learn and be outside and just see what's happening. And a lot of the times that strategy is going to look like just taking a drive right across the streets to go to the next business to really ask, okay, how can we help you? How can we support you? So I think the big thing is for us to continue to think about how can we continue to change our strategic approach when it comes to serving our members and really improve that member experience, going back to the principle of people helping people and truly having that empathy and active listening.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just sorry. I was going to echo everything that Chelsia said. Yes, as someone who, my department, its entire responsibility to drive new growth, right? Like we are the engine that keeps growth coming for our credit union. But we have a mindset in my department that at the end of the day, people will remember how you made them feel. And so we go into that approach with everything that we do with our tactics. And so just keep that at your core, is that people matter and moments that matter, put that into your strategy.
We do have one more question coming in.
Yeah.
It's from someone with a credit union in Indonesia.
Mhm.
And I think it's for you, Chelsea. How can you get data more easily and more recently about customer credit union loyalty?
Yeah, I think going back to some of the tools we share during the presentation, there's a lot of really great organizations out there, right? For example, Coopera, and Jennifer can speak more to
Yeah.
that on this call, that they work with data and they have some of that data available. But I think it's also very important to train your team and really bring a momentum in your credit union to start being more data driven. This is actually something that Connections right now we are doing. And in all the partners now, our leadership team truly asks, what is the data? What are you trying to solve? When you're putting this event together, when you're trying to put this campaign together, when you're bringing this solution for your operational procedures, what is the data? What are you trying to solve, right? So he's really forcing us to be more data driven and really use data to make decisions on everything we make. So I think it's very important that you also bring that momentum within your team and really have that strategic approach of, before doing something, how can you really find that data? And you think if you can find that data, how can you work with other institutions like Coopera, and even at Connections Credit Union, we work, for example, with Idaho State University, where we actually took some of their master's students to do a research for us on the mobile unit. So they could give us the data of what is happening in Idaho, and then we are using that to actually bring those solutions. So we didn't have to look for the data ourselves. We partner with institutions, higher education institutions, where sometimes they have the data, they have the time, and that's where that partnership comes along for you to really work together and figure out those solutions to your members.
Yeah, no, thank you. Chelsea, absolutely right. There's a lot of data out there, but oftentimes we can be literal about what we're looking for. So, you want to know how many members come through your doors or how many new members you've gained. It may have to come with you in data that comes sideways, right? If you're looking at maybe you may need to look at a count of how many check cashers and payday lenders are located within, let's say, a 10-kilometer radius of where your branches are located. I think that it's important to pair up with local institutions, local nonprofits, hospitals, education systems. They have some data that you can better understand the needs of your community, not directly, but really looking what the pain points are. And that's where, sociologists, anthropologists like myself, right? That's what we're trained to do, is looking at disparate kinds of data so we can find patterns and help you interpret what your credit union can do. I also answered Joe's question. It's there on the webinar chat about what do we do for those who are feeling left behind. I like to say, credit unions, we are the financial social workers of our communities. And, social workers, we take a holistic approach. And so how can we create our credit unions to be these social hubs for socializing, barbecues, mentoring younger people, having monthly workshops that help, elderly members who they're not interested in taking out new loans or, buying a new car, but they're also susceptible to fraud. So why don't you have a local, monthly tea time where you're bringing in older members who are not as engaged, but they could still benefit from some financial literacy at this stage in their lives. I think that's where we are. So with that, Liz?
Great. Well, thank you so much. Before I wrap, I just wanted to share one quick story. I'm in the Madison area, and I took my kids on a little day trip to Illinois to the Discovery Center Museum, where I got pictures of my two little boys playing in the Rock Valley Credit Union area. And my little boy is 6, so he's just starting to read, and he read credit union. He goes, "Mommy, is this where you work?" And so I explained, we do advocacy for credit unions and how it's different than some other financial institutions, and just that power of play and being there with, the transaction was great. But we posted that on our WOFU social media page and tagged Rock Valley, so please feel free to share that. But I just thought, what a coincidence that now we're doing this webinar with them the following day. So that was great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. If you are interested in continuing the conversation and connecting with peers from around the world, we want to let you know that registration is now open for our World Credit Union Conference. World Council will be co-hosting this global event with the Customer Owned Banking Association in Sydney, Australia, from July 19th through July 22nd. So you can scan the QR code on your screen to learn more. And of course, we'd love to see you there. That concludes today's webinar. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. Have a great day.